Hello and welcome. You're listening to Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network, which is our weekly podcast where we analyze the latest in advertising, marketing, customer behavior, new product launches, retailing, branding, anything marketing. I'm Barbara Kahn, the Patty and J.H. Baker Professor of Marketing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Americus Reed, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Professor of Marketing and the Brand Identity Theorist. Hello, Americus.
Hello, Barbara. So last week, we sat in on a presentation in our department. A professor by the name of Kevin Lee, University of Michigan, marketing prof, talking about AI and how AI can be used agentically to help design your emails and outreach and protocols and different collaterals for your marketing efforts. And they actually introduced this idea of having AI sort of help you figure out in A/B testing what's working, what's not working, and so on.
Yeah,
And
that
so
would be
really cool,
useful, wouldn't it?
really cool
Yeah.
result. They actually reported a 33% lift. So now I'm wondering, I want to go deeper on this idea of agentic AI and like the marriage, Barbara, between these new tools and us as marketers trying to measure stuff, trying to elevate and amplify. Is there anything you've got for me that can help shed some light on this today?
Why don't we get someone who really knows what he's talking about? And I'm really happy to have with us in the studio today Chris O'Neill, who's the CEO of GrowthLoop. And GrowthLoop is trying to redefine that future of marketing using, as you're suggesting, AI and data. Chris, welcome to our show.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, it's great to be here with you.
So, Chris, before you tell us about the world of AI and marketing and how to improve everything, can you tell us your background, how you got to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a very small town of 7,000 people in the middle of nowhere up in Canada. And I found my way to the Valley for 2 months before graduate school, and it's turned into 25 years. I've been very fortunate to be part of some incredible companies like Google, some amazing teams and brands. And really, the first wave of that was really trying to figure out how you actually use this thing called digital marketing to help build personal connections or just connections with consumers and businesses. So that was the first wave. And now we're here, an exciting new wave with applying AI in an even more transformative way. So I'm really lucky. I've been part of some incredible teams and boards, and that's really been a fun journey. And I'm really excited to share some of it with you
So,
here today.
I mean, just because Americus went to that lecture, but I didn't. So, like, there's like a bunch of stuff that I don't even understand the words of. So,
Yes.
I understand Growth Loop, which is the company you're CEO of, has something to do with compound marketing. Like, what does that term mean? And what does agentic
Yeah.
AI mean? Can you just start at the really basic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
I've
we
just
know
been obsessed.
compound interest is a good
Yeah.
thing, Chris. So
100%. And that's
so-
where it started. You know, in that small town, we used to get a lot of snow in the winter. And I remember we'd have friends of ours come in, and sometimes they get stuck. Like literally it'd be that much snow. And I was given a book during one of these 4-day stays when some family members read some books, and they left me this book, and it was called The Wealthy Barber. And it was a story about a proverbial wealthy barber who did some really small investing and compounded it over time, and he became wealthy. And that started a lifelong fascination with the notion of compounding. And we just stop and think about it. Compounding's everywhere. Albert Einstein famously said it's the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest, right? It's in nature, right? If you think about how forests happen, it's actually compounding. There's like the worldwide wood, they call it. It's a mitochondria like underneath the soil. It's in nature. It's in technology. You know, when you think about network effects, that's compounding. James Clear, I'm a huge fan of. If you get 1% better every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better. So it's the notion of little things that are done consistently over time that start to lead to exponential results. And we got to thinking, okay, gosh, we're trying to combine data and AI with people in the loop to unleash the brand's potential, right? Whether it's a personal connection with the brand or whether it's the different variety of tools and channels you can bring together to offer truly personalized and really great experiences. So we borrowed the term compounding shamelessly and said, hey, what if we could compound marketing? And so that's really where it starts.
Interesting.
The second part with Agentic, really, like AI is interesting in so many ways, and we'll unpack some of it today. But many of the changes in marketing were kind of the demand side, meaning the consumers changed how they interacted, right? We went from desktops to mobile, right? Analog to digital. And certainly there's elements of demand side change here, but the bigger change is supply side. What I mean by that is the way in which we do marketing, the way in which we go about workflows with AI in the middle is really exciting. And we're just scratching the surface. And again, I'm keen to get into it with you today because I think it's a supply side, meaning it's changing the way in which we interact with people in a very personal way, in a way which in many ways has been the holy grail forever. And we've been living with this unfulfilled promise of marketing as a cost center or marketing as some interruption. And there's so much more we can do together. And I know you feel the same. And I'm keen to, as I said, get into it a little bit with you today.
So, okay, so you had this big idea of compound marketing and you
Love that.
understand more of how all this works. So, with that in mind, did you start GrowthLoop or like how did the whole company get started or what is it exactly?
So I've been fortunate. Remember, I talked about great brands and teams, and Google was one of them. I was
Mm,
at Google for 10 years during a very great, really, really wonderful time during a very obviously generational company. And during that time, I met some incredible people, including the two founders of GrowthLoop. They worked for an old CMO of mine when I was up running Google in Canada, and they are like just incredible entrepreneurs. And they looked at how Google did marketing and they said, "Gosh, for a company that's allegedly so innovative, they sure don't like really always think about marketing in an interesting way." So Chris and David, the founders, said, "Hey, why is it that I, as a product marketing manager with goals to drive value for a particular product, have to go and line up outside a data team just to basically get a hypothesis tested with SQL and all this code, and that bounces back and forth and takes days and weeks and up to a month just to do one campaign?" They thought that was silly, right? So basically, they had the innovation to build on top of a data cloud, right? So increasingly, we're putting data in fewer places. These things called data clouds. This is Google BigQuery. This is Google Cloud, or a company like Snowflake, Databricks, Azure, Amazon. There are many data clouds, but the notion was, how about you start there by putting an intelligence layer on top of the data, as opposed to pushing the data everywhere? Really, and this is incredibly important from a cost perspective, from a compute perspective, security perspective, and now, of course, with AI, you want to have your data and your understanding and your intelligence on your customers in one place, so you can apply the full effect of this magical technology called AI. So that's the insight where it started. And then the other part with compounding is the notion that it's not a funnel so much as it's a loop, right? You basically have ideas, who you should be speaking to, where you should be speaking to them, and then do closed loop experiments where you get a little bit better every time, and then it really compounds as you do so.
Wait, you gotta, because I'm like big on this funnel and this loop. So I really need you to unpack that a little more. So you have a different structural model of dealing with the customer rather than thinking about it like a funnel, which is traditional. So,
Yeah.
are you in the product category? Then you're considering the brand, then, my brand compared to others. You're suggesting some kind of loop. So what exactly does that mean? I don't
Yeah.
really understand.
Yeah, no, great question. Yeah, so in a funnel, we basically treated the world as like this big pool, and then you basically pull them through a funnel. And there's a consideration, all that stuff we taught when I was in business school. We were taught about
Right,
consideration, awareness, all that good stuff. And
right.
look, I'm here to say, look, you need to continue to invest in your purpose and your brand and why you exist. That is as important, if not more important, than ever. However, you can do better, right? Rather than treating everyone as like one big segment, we're actually getting close to the Holy Grail where you can actually reasonably intuit something interesting about a person at the one-to-one level. This is the importance of what sometimes called first-party data, information you have on that person,
Okay,
so
I
that
see.
you can intercept them at the right moment to
okay.
ensure loyalty,
So customer
surprise and
journey.
delight
It's
them.
a customer journey kind of model
It's
then,
it's
right?
an iterative customer journey that says
Okay,
you're going to treat people or sub segments or even one to one for the first time in an iterative loop, as opposed to just doing what I sometimes call waterfall marketing. It's more
okay,
agile, just like we
okay,
develop
okay,
software.
Yeah. Yeah. Just let me just see if I
okay, I
if I
get it
have this
now.
correct, Chris, because I don't think what you're saying is somehow falsifying the funnel as much as it's saying, hey, you know what? We can make this funnel super efficient by almost pointing and using tools that allow us to kind of get to that behavioral part faster. In other words, we can have some understanding, and then we can use artificial intelligence to sort of test kind of immediate sort of intuitions that we have and, quote, get to the right answer as fast as possible. So there's less guesswork, I guess, in this context.
But is this also predicated on this notion of touch points? Like, I mean, how do you know when to interact? It has to be when the customer engages, I guess.
Exactly. So, quick story. I serve on the board with a very senior member at Starbucks, executive at Starbucks, rather. And he and I were talking about this very topic. And he says, look, we know that Sally is a vegetarian. So why is it when Sally visits her local Starbucks, we're offering her meat products? We're offering her meat. Like, that just seems odd, right? When you can reasonably know with permission. And Sally wants to know, like, what she's going to get when she is greeted by the barista. They probably know that. But systematically, how about you offer something that would be relevant to Sally as opposed to irrelevant? So it does start absolutely. Touch points a great point.
So when Sally comes to the cash register,
you learn about her.
A script about Sally. That's what you're saying, right?
So exactly. And that's continued.
The customer engages with us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's just one touch point. I love that term. We actually, we talk about touch points and moments that matter because, again, sometimes it's leaving Sally alone, right? It's not just constantly interrupting.
But that implies you know Sally, and Sally's going to get to know you, right? I mean, so are you only talking about a situation where I've already had interaction with the customer, and then the way I interact with her at the next moment should reflect that history? But that implies I have that relationship already.
Correct. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
So but I am talking about both, right? So you can reasonably intuit, and this is where back to machine learning, right? So we sometimes intermix the term machine learning with AI. Machine learning says, okay, how can we go about into the rest of the potential prospects or potential touch points to basically inform the set of next actions, which would reasonably do the right thing for the brand and for the long-term customer relationship. And this is a really exciting part where you can actually get to causality, right? So most of marketing is correlative. It's like we think these things worked, but we don't know, right? And that's the thing that's holding back a lot of marketing. It's like, the CFO and the CMO need to be BFFs, right? It needs to be talk the language of the CFO. And that's really one of the things that I think separates the great CMOs from the sort of mediocre ones.
Yeah. That's interesting. I love the CFO and the CMO need to be BFFs. That's fantastic. I need that on a T-shirt, Chris. All right, now listen. So I want to make sure I'm unpacking this correctly, because I think what you're saying is like, hey, the fact that we have tools that allow us to unpack insights and data very quickly now allows us to be much more inductive, right? So we can kind of go to Barbara's point. We can kind of immediately, we have a touch point with Sally, and we have some inferences about what she's done in the marketplace, and not what she reported on a survey, but what she's actually done.
Exactly.
And we start building that intelligence and testing and iterating and testing and iterating and testing to get that clear picture of Sally, and then see to what extent can we predict other Sallys out there as a function of, is that close at all in terms of
you nailed it? No.
Okay.
So fast, personalized, data-driven, and continuously optimized. This is the notion of a funnel, and this is exactly what we're talking about. So you absolutely nailed it.
But so his point, though, because I understand once you know the person using that data, that makes sense to me. But what America said, which is taking it another level, and is that what you're saying? The way you reach people you don't know is by optimizing the data you do know. So that's where you start. And then you look for other people. Like, that's what America said. Is that what you're saying too?
Yeah, correct. So you're absolutely right. There's two modalities. Do you know the person? Do you know something about them, or do you not? And that's like the different techniques are used to tease those apart. But where it starts to get magical is when you start to inform one from the other. A lot of the science is sort of the techniques are born from a lot of probabilistic statistics, right? So you'll hear things like multi-armed bandits, and all that's a fancy way of saying is you're assigning people to a group, and then you have a test and control, right? A lot of the power and things we're super excited about is that you actually have a test and control group, so you can prove causality. You can basically and have a holdout group that lasts for a time. Now, here's an interesting magic we're really excited about is over time you can use math to basically approximate the control group so you don't actually have to hold them out and still determine causality and still determine is it having the lift and the desired personalized impact and moving the needle on a metric like your customer lifetime value. That's like, whoa, that's like mind-blowing for many people, and we're really just scratching the surface on what's possible there.
Interesting. Let me ask this question. I love this point because in some senses, I've heard this quote, Barbara, that marketing starts with math and ends with art. Kind of how to, we'll unpack that later, Barbara. But Chris, help me, because I want to get to Barbara's level of understanding here. A very specific example to say, all right, I come to you, Chris, in GrowthLoop, and I've got a data set.
Yeah.
Is that how this happens? And then you look at my data, and then you build out a kind of AI infrastructure and or agentic architecture to lay on top of my data in order to help me pull as much insights about what I can understand from the people in that data set as fast as possible. Is that correct at all? Or
correct? Let's make it specific. Okay, so a brand comes to us. Yeah. So and they have a brief, right? We're familiar with marketing briefs to say this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is the business objectives. This is who we're trying to talk to, right? Literally drag and drop the brief into our agent, our campaign agent, right? Would basically start the following: say, discerning what the marketer is trying to accomplish. And you talk about art. I think art and math intertwine at different stages because it's like the real role for humans is ingenuity and creativity to say, hey, what's happening in the zeitgeist that really is relevant to our customers? So it's a really important role. Marry that up with what has worked in the past. So a brief comes in, it basically gets processed by an agent, and it says, what do we know about this this objective and these set of campaigns we've run in the past and the people that might be relevant? So it then offers up to the marketer a set of different audiences to basically go and treat with something. And then it would suggest a journey, right? To say, okay, maybe you send them something through your app or your email, or maybe you have to give them some time and maybe then offer them an ad or some form of incentive. So that's what happens, right? A brief gets turned into a specific set of audiences and a specific journey, which then gets pushed into the world and then executed and then run back into what worked and read it back into your data cloud, lather, rinse, and repeat. This is exactly the work that we're doing with some amazing brands. So
can you give me like a real concrete example with just specifics exactly how this worked, like a big success story?
Sure, I'll give you a recent one. We are so fortunate to work with Costco, right? Everyone knows and loves
good.
Costco.
Chris, you're speaking her language, Costco.
Costco.
We're on board. Already we're good.
I love Costco. So I'm going to give a little bit of a little spin on this, but Costco is super, super into their members, right? And they put their members above all else. Their business model is well predicated on selling memberships, and they're very tight. Like if you ever, the Acquired podcast has done a deep dive into it.
I've listened to that several times. It's great.
And I love it. So, okay. So people are familiar with Costco, and Costco is very in the business of working with their brands to basically ensure delightful experiences and connecting them to, say it's DeWalt tools, right? So basically, how can you infer the people in the Costco membership that might have a propensity to buy DeWalt tools? We can do that with math, right? And then what we're doing is connecting the two. We basically say, DeWalt, Costco, here's a subset of customers that used to take days and weeks just to really do the math and really surface the people. We now do that in hours, right? In terms of really understanding and automating the connection between, in this case, a brand and a set of high propensity customers.
So what do you do with that information? Can you just show me?
Yeah, then you send them an email, you send them an offer, you push something into the Costco app. It really depends, and you're constantly testing to understand both what offer resonates with the subset, which channels seem to work the best. Maybe it's an in-store experience. So it's a really multi-channel or omni-channel. Sometimes people use that term experience that says, okay, how do we broker this in a way that is additive for the merchant in the home improvement category, and of course the members. It has to be a balance between the two.
So let me just get this. It's just hard for me. So your client is DeWalt Tools, and they want to know,
in this
your
case, yeah.
client is Costco.
Yeah.
And so Costco pays you to figure out how to optimize the purchases of specific brands within their environment. Is that how it works? Or
That is one use case. Exactly. Right. So it is, and really just to abstract it away and talk just in terms like it allows their marketing velocity to be faster, right? Like where that used to take weeks, it now takes hours. So therefore, right, DeWalt has money they want to spend, and there's many DeWalts, right? There's n number of brands. And if it's very manual and really takes a long time,
Yeah.
well,
so
it's
this is like a retail media network. Is that who your clients
in
are?
this case, that's what it is. Correct. We do life cycle marketing and retail media networks, and really we do the similar stuff with Albertsons and Priceline and
Now
Fanatics
I'm
and many
getting it.
others.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so your client is the retailer, and the retailer's customers are these brands, and you're
Correct.
trying to figure out a way to optimize what the brand can get from the retail media's data, and the way they optimize all that is through you. Is that right?
Correct. We play a part in a broader ecosystem. I want to be clear, but yeah, it's the how do you accelerate that? Get the velocity. We're going to talk about
Now I
speed
get
again.
it.
Yeah.
And then secondly, did it work? Right? It's not just did you throw out some impressions?
Right.
No. The brands, with all respect, they care about moving their products and having delightful experiences. So we also help them measure incrementality
Right.
in the store, right? And that sounds easier than it is in terms of the actual math and the calculation. But
So incrementality defined as if you didn't do anything, how much more with what you did matters in some sense.
Bingo.
Right?
Yeah, it's a resource
Absolutely.
allocation problem in some
Correct.
senses.
Correct.
Let me ask you this, Chris, because I want to make sure I understand this part, because the math gets the retailer to some hypothetical set of audiences to think about. Does the retailer then step in? Because now it's sort of like, okay, what do I prioritize? Is it an ad? Is it a this? Is it a that? Is that where the marketers then step in and say, well, I know something about some of these groups, and now I'm going to bring sort of a creative piece to sort of prioritize some of the marketing protocols that might be used to, again, is that what happens in this case?
Yeah, exactly. We believe in human in the loop, right? So these agents are working on behalf of the brands and the customers, and they can suggest things, the audience, the journey, the creative, like Nano Banana and all these images are getting like so good, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
I wouldn't have expected that at the pace. We can talk about that separately, but yeah, it's about suggesting things, and yeah, it's using intuition, right? It's using the understanding of what has worked in the past. So marketers, arguably, they're getting out of the mundane stuff, right? And a lot of that, the work of the work is so not why marketers signed up for the job. So we're freeing them up to do the job that maybe they wanted to do in the first place.
Along the lines of what Americus is asking, are a lot of the suggestions more price related or deal related? Or, I mean, typically.
Great question. Yeah. So, this is where machine learning and AI actually interact. So machine learning would be a propensity model. So we have high propensity model, like take Albertsons. Albertsons knows who's a vegan, right? So they have like propensity models to say vegans have high propensity to buy these products, right? These products and not these ones. Or to your point, Barbara, price elasticity, right? I serve on the board of Gap, and tariffs have had enormous impact on anyone who's importing things, and Gap certainly falls into that camp.
Mm-hmm.
So getting an understanding of where and how you can change prices, that's a price elasticity game, right? So how do you take
That I
understanding?
imagine would be wonderful.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's a hard problem, but it's not just in a category, all the way down to a SKU level, and then ideally at an individual level. So this is where the math, those are math problems, right? Machine learning, like propensity or price elasticity.
Yeah.
So let me just go back to the old world of grocery. Like before we had all this data and all this fancy stuff, and you can do it on each customer, whatever. I remember Catalina would put out coupons in the grocery based on what you purchased just at the cash register that time, because they didn't have all the sophistication.
Yes.
And they do one thing or another, which is kind of what I hear you saying. They'd either give me a price deal of some kind of coupon for future purchase, or if I was Pepsi and paying for it and the customer bought Coke, they might give me a coupon for Pepsi to try to convert me. So like what you're saying now is in multi-dimensions, much more in a sophisticated way than Catalina used to do it at the one time at the cash register. I can either give you different kinds of price deals, or like you said, if I'm vegan, or I can give you a constellation of brands where I'd be more, that's what you meant by propensity, I think, more likely to buy that product because I see you bought this in the past, therefore you're more likely to buy carrots than you are to buy steak. With the vegan example, is that kind of there? I'm saying in a super simple way, and you're doing it in a multi-dimensional way. But is that
and 10 times as fast, probably?
Well, 10. That is well said, Barbara. Exactly. I remember Catalina well. I used to study them, and that's exactly. Now it's a version of that, but it's like it's faster. To your point, it is much more. It's taking in so much more data. Right. That's a very simple. If this, then that.
That was a very simple example, but I can understand it. But now, if you multiply it by all these different directions and do it like instantly, the power is incredible.
It is. And, so let's weave in, you asked earlier off the top, Agentic. What does that mean? Like the reason, I spent 3 hours yesterday doing a Claude Code course for PMs in this case, but like I so recommend people jumping in and trying it. And why do I get excited? So the innovation that Claude Code and variants of it represent are what they're calling long horizon agents, right? So when the ChatGPT moment happened, that was all about pre-training a model, and then we had reasoning and inference time compute. Like that was where like it's thinking to basically really, really run lots of different permutations. And this long horizon agents are a game changer because it actually can look long horizon and hold context and look at the whole system. So to your point, Barbara, this is not only just taking in more information, it's actually thinking about the long horizon of the relationship, right? So we're just starting to see this. Where it's like, well, maybe it is like these 10 things. I'm making that number up, but it's thinking about the entire system. And that's where the agents.
It is.
So you're maximizing lifetime value. You're not only at this one occasion doing it in a million different directions. So it's not only multidimensional in that way with the different tools you can use and all the different questions you can ask, but it's dynamic, it's long-term. So you're looking about how to maximize the that's incredible. That is
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris O'Neill has just split the atom live on our podcast.
I mean, it's kind of amazing. I can't, I see why it's so hard to explain because it's just so much. And then you have metrics that prove you're able to do this somehow or another. I mean, you're not just taking it on faith because it's pretty hard to get your brain around all of these things.
It is, but the math, we've applied it in ad tech for a long time. That was my previous, run at Google, and now this is like, how do you bring it into marketing personalization? So it's borrowing similar concepts and then turbocharging it with AI. It's just like it is mind bending. The hardest thing is actually changing the people's minds and the workflows that underlie. People get used to different ways of thinking, and the longest pull, the hardest change is actually changing the ways in which people go about their business. And that's the hardest thing. And that's, I find it deeply rewarding once you do that. So you're not just applying your existing workflows and your mindsets to a whole new set of tools, or vice versa, right? It's new tools on top of
When you
those
say
workflows.
people, are you talking about the marketers, the end users, the retailers? Who are the people you're talking about?
All the above, but particularly the marketers, right? And so like what's happened, there's always been a tug of war between technical people and like the data teams and lots of different parts of large organizations. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have thought that the marketing leaders of today or now would be a blend of art and science, right? These people who have data-driven thing and deep appreciation for personalization and brand. I would have thought they sort of merged those together, and that's still largely true. But what's happening is the data teams and the technologists are really leaning in, and they're saying, hey, for a long time, this promise has not been kept, right? The BFF thing I mentioned. The reason that's not true as a rule is that basically marketers haven't leaned in consistently to show that this isn't just a cost center. This is a growth engine, right? So the technologists, with all these tools we're talking about, I mean, they're so powerful. It's unbelievable. I wouldn't have
It
thought of
is
it. And the
unbelievable.
slope of improvement is incredible. So you're seeing the technologists really play a role, and they're trying to learn marketing faster than marketing is trying to learn tech.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating time to be in business. But it does require a mindset and a partnership of collaboration that takes time, and really the
So
cultures of
let's just okay.
curiosity.
This we are almost at the end of time. If we're not at the end of time, so let's just big picture this, like just to get like with all of this power and all this ability that you have to make all these predictions. Would you maintain that you are not only increasing bottom line for the retailer, because the retailer's selling this information. So the more useful the information is, the more money they'll get for that information, the more value they'll have. The marketer who's selling more product. But are you also maximizing the experience for the end user?
Yeah.
Like, is that one of the goals too? I mean,
I think it's the main goal. Absolutely, right? It's for too long. I mean, the reason I'm in this line of work is like, look, we all experience this in our day-to-day life, some suboptimal experiences, whether it's the actual product experience or the marketing experience, the customer service experience. And like, I just think that, this is going to be one of the use cases, just like it is for DevOps, like developing code or customer service interaction where you're applying agents. Same as in marketing too. For goodness sake, we know information and people are willing to offer it in a fair exchange for more delightful experiences.
Right.
And that's what great brands, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. That like, that's what it's all about. That's the higher order bit. The tech can be a service to wonderful experiences. And that's what gets us out of bed every morning. And we're really, really thrilled
I can't wait to see what Costco's going to put up for me next. Like, that's what you told me. I'm going to be even happier shopping at Costco now,
that's
right?
funny. I love it though, Barbara, to your point though, because as Chris is saying, it's the trifecta, right? I mean, consumer welfare goes up, marketing efficiency, marketers do their jobs better. I mean, it's just win-win-win. This is fantastic.
Well, Chris, it's been kind of an amazing little session. If I understand an eighth of what you're talking about, I'll be thrilled. But it's been wonderful talking to you. Can you tell us where consumers can learn more about this, or our listeners can learn more about what you're talking about and get into more of the details? Is that available for people to dig in?
Yeah. People can track me down on LinkedIn. That's usually where I spend my my social time. So people want to track me down on LinkedIn or check out GrowthLoop. We'd be happy to chat or just really like help us move this whole industry one step forward. So thank you so much for the time and discussion. I've enjoyed it very much. So thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, Chris O'Neill, CEO of GrowthLoop. That's all we have time for today. We'd like to thank our producers, Dion Simpkins and Marissa Renna. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network. I'm Barbara Kahn, here with Americus Reed.